pepper's gone.
No, that's all right.
No changes to our work session.
No, on the travel request, I may just y'all have schedule stuff. Annual CB says one day.
Even if you sell my car, that's not gonna be enough money.
That's a federal
I mean, at
holiday.
this point, it's
That's what Christmas
you're
is.
not even gonna get like. Well, this is true. This is true. Wow, where did it anyway?
And they even operate on Fridays?
They're gonna have a bunch of trash after Christmas.
Well, what are they doing next week for New Year's? New Year's is going to be observed on Friday. So either way, you're looking at a 3-day week.
That's right.
I mean, if we built something out.
Hello.
Water be awesome.
Please.
Let's play
Thank you.
Keep it up.
Bring that us vote for a
Yeah, but there's no federal holiday New Year's Eve. That's not good. Do we observe New Year's Eve?
Thank you for calling me today and letting me know about that. And I'm sorry I had to interrupt.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I bet. That was
me off more than anything. The nerve, you know.
He's a piece of work, I tell you.
Like nothing we've ever seen.
I don't know. I mean, it sounds like we need clarity around our policy.
These shares are very valuable. They're antiques. It's giving you back a massage.
Hey, how you? I just got off the phone with her. She said, I said.
About 4 o'clock, I was getting out of the shower. Nobody home but me. And this horn started blowing in my house. Blowing and blowing and blowing. I slip on some shorts and go out the door, and you in the car is Miss Vanetta Green.
Need you say more.
To let you know, the
Y'all doing all right? You doing all right, Mr. Eugene? All right, I got 5 o'clock, so we will call the work session of the Enterprise City Council to order. The record show that all members of the council are present. So we've got a busy night tonight. A lot of this just culmination of a lot of work we've already put in, so it'll feel like we've done a ton when we get out of here tonight. So let's move straight into our budget discussion. Leanne, you want to update us on where we're at on that? I think looks like, best I can tell, y'all just cleaned up everything based on our conversations last week.
Yes. So we had, I feel like, a really good meeting last week where council got to voice their concerns and where they felt direction they wanted us to head for the new fiscal year last week. And everybody got to speak with the department heads and talk to them about their wants and needs for each of their departments. And I feel like it was a really good meeting. And after that meeting, we took back some feedback from the council, and we did make some updates on there, removing some capital expenditures that we feel like at this point we will probably recommend doing an amendment probably halfway, maybe a little more than halfway through the fiscal year, once we've been able to really evaluate where we're headed with sales tax revenues and can make a better assessment of that. Then we would probably recommend going back partway through the year, reevaluating some of those capital expenditures and perhaps amending the budget to include some of those items if we're able to at that point. But you've got an updated copy of the budget there in your packets. There were, I know I emailed it out on Friday, there were some small tweaks in there. But overall, the budget for this year is approximately a $53.7 million budget. Currently, with the operating expenses and requests that we have in there, that will put us with a surplus for the year of $516,000. So overall, compared to the prior year's amended budget, that's about a $3.6 million increase from the budget that we had for fiscal year 21. A large portion of that, of course, as you know, is going to be due to the pay study that was conducted in fiscal year 21, and providing that council goes ahead and approves that budget, then, or that pay study increase, then this budget takes those increased numbers into account for our operating expenses for the coming year. So,
And the timing of those increases are reflected in the budget like we discussed last week.
yes, sir. Yes.
So following year, it'll be an even bigger number
Yes, sir.
because it'll
correct.
be the entire year.
It will be the entire fiscal year then for fiscal year 2023. Yes, sir. Also included in this is our anticipated fiscal recovery funds, and that works out to be approximately $1.8 million. So we've already received a portion of that money this fiscal year. There is an anticipated next summer, the final distribution of those funds. And of course, when they're receipted in, they'll be restricted for use, depending on the final guidance that's issued by the Treasury Department. But those will be coming in next fiscal year, so that has been included in there. Maintaining our conservative approach to the budgeting for the coming year. One of the things that was left out was any additional increase that might come from the council's approval of a new business license ordinance. So we went ahead and budgeted without that being in there, just because that's not been voted and approved on, and there still may be changes to that. And I feel like it's more appropriate for us to not count on that at this time until we get a final decision, from council. I think that's the way to go on that. And if we approve it and we do a budget amendment through the year, then we can look at that again and reconsider it. But
Scotty, you got any questions?
No.
Greg?
That's my only question. I may should have asked this earlier, but if we were to approve the business license, do we have a general idea of what that's going to potentially add to our income?
there is a potential that it would be approximately $650,000 increase in the revenues. The thing to keep in mind about the business license, of course, is that that's on a calendar year versus a fiscal year.
Right.
So our business license renewal is in January. So it would still have time for that to take effect, to be included in fully in the fiscal year, with those rolling out in January if council decides to go forward with that.
Eugene, any questions?
No other comments, thank you.
Sonia? I had one question, not really a big deal, but I noticed, I'm trying to find it now, the sanitation fees. We've got level funded, or level budgeted.
We do have level budgeting on
But
that.
that should increase, right?
And it should increase. That's a conversation I've had with Barry and with Shannon about our fee structure. I know that's been an ongoing conversation between staff and council. It's about how we can write those fees that we're charging for services that we provide. And I would anticipate, I believe we're looking at something more along.
Sanitation.
Yeah, so we're slated next year, October 1, to increase by $2.
Right.
Oh, that's a
Prior
separate.
administration, I think 4 years ago, approved
Yes.
$2 a year increase for 5 years. If
Right.
I'm not mistaken. So
I believe you're right.
October 1, we're triggered to do that through the water.
Yes.
department. So that's on Carrie's calendar, on Barry's calendar. We're all tracking.
Yes.
And how many
That-
cans do we have?
About 10,500. Yeah, 10,500.
So
Yeah.
$20,000 a month, 250,000.
Yeah, about $4 million.
Right. Yes.
Right.
So yes, that is going to go into effect October 1st. Any other changes in fee scheduling or anything like that has not been factored in. I know that it's something that like I said, we've had a dialogue about for several months now, but of course, until that gets, voted and approved, nothing for that has been included. But the $2 on October 1st will definitely be happening, so.
So obviously we can get that with a budget amendment.
Yes, sir.
Not gonna move the needle much. All right, that's all I had. Is everybody prepared to adopt this tonight?
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
Sam.
I remember us doing that. That was for 5 years. Am I remember?
It was scaled, yes, it was scaled each fiscal year.
I think it
for
went from
5
1450 to
Okay.
2150, so
Yes.
maybe 16, 18, 19, maybe 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
This
think it
is
was
the
4.
last
I think it was at 4. Where was it? Was it at 1150? Okay, we went up $3 the first year, and then it was $2 each subsequent year, and capped out at 2150. And then it goes on a CPI inflation index, I believe.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
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 So no concerns passing this tonight. Obviously, this is our last council meeting for the fiscal year begins, so we need to get the mayor a budget. So.
So,
All right.
okay, thank you.
All right, moving on to business license discussion. So on those same lines, you should have received Friday the slightly modified business license ordinance. I believe all that was modified, Jonathan, Leanne, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, was the Schedule M.
Manufacturing, and then there was one tweak that under auto manufacturing, that was more of a clerical error on our part, between, what was it, $300,000 and $10 million in the automotive.
Schedule RA, and I think it's on page 46.
So automotive dealers,
Yes.
not automotive manufacturers.
Correct.
What page?
I think it's page 46,
Is everybody?
Schedule RA.
Mm-hmm.
So the very first line there, it says, I think it says 0 to, right now it says gross receipts up to $1 million. Is that correct? The one that you received?
It says gross receipts less than $1 million.
Yes, gross receipts less than $1 million. So on the one that you received on Friday, what it stated was gross receipts less than 300,000.
Okay,
And
so there
then
was a
we
gap.
Skipped to over 1 million, so we had a gap. So we just corrected it today to say gross receipts up to 1 million.
Okay.
So that's it.
All right. Then the other change was in Schedule M.
M under manufacturing, the rates under the base rates, it's capped at $10,000, and the base rates, I think, start at 500, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions, concerns, additional feedback? We'll believe is the way we have that drafted again tonight is to have a public hearing.
You can have a public hearing, or you can obviously suspend the rules and adopt if you chose
Let's
to do
see.
so.
So actually, the way that she drew up the agenda does not call for a public hearing. So what we'll do is we'll, if y'all remember last time, and I kind of liked that, especially for any potentially controversial ordinance to have a public hearing, but it's not the way the agenda is drawn up tonight. So I'll ask for those people to come forward in the privilege of the floor if everybody thinks that's okay. Of course, nobody came last meeting, so. All right. Anything else on Scotty, Greg, Eugene, Sonia, business license ordinance? All right, we'll move on to food truck ordinance then. Again, there were some minor tweaks as discussed last meeting. Based on my recollection and notes, they were all covered. Greg, would you agree?
We had talked, or I had talked to Councilman Padgett just briefly about kind of the cool down period at 20 minutes. And I think internally, since we're on oversight on that, particularly the fire chief in his department, I think we can work internally on a policy that addresses that. I mean, obviously, if you don't have fryers or something there, you don't need a cool down if you're serving, sandwiches or something out of there.
Well, as I looked at it and thought it more, it's only a 20-minute cool down. So, I mean, most people don't take that long just getting everything packed up anyway. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
First thing you do is turn your appliances off. By the time you pull out, 20 minutes. So.
That's easy to spin.
But yeah, the rest of the changes mainly involve fire safety.
Yeah, and I noticed we made some fairly nuanced changes to just some wording of some things we discussed last. I feel good about it. Scotty, Greg, Eugene, Sonia, any comments, questions? All right, so now to something that Sonia requested that we discuss in more detail. This came out of our budget hearings last week. Travel request discussion. Sonia, can you refresh our memory on what your thoughts were on that? I should have given you a heads up.
In as much as we were discussing some ways, we were talking about certain requests that the department heads make, capital expenditures and whatnot, and just really approving those things that they just really need, as got some wants, but then want to really crack down on more of the needs. So I made a suggestion that we try to look at the same thing with some of these travel requests too. Although we want everybody to get whatever it is they need to be able to do their best job, but to really be looking at, is this something that is needed for you to, that's required for your certification or anything, or is just, are you bringing anything valuable back to the city that can improve in certain areas, or just kind of, we just kind of go through the agenda even before we did the consent agenda, and we approved these and not really, I don't know what really, they go into, it tells us the name, but the relevance of it, I'm not sure that we're getting.
Yeah.
I would like to see more.
Yeah, I've noticed sometimes the department head will.
I think you say the department head really needs to determine if it's worthwhile.
Yeah, the department head will include a request in our packets that have sometimes a narrative, sometimes not much of a narrative. So, did you have some thoughts on this, Jonathan?
It's a simple request, and if that you need more information,
I don't really care about what's going on at the conference or something like that.
Right.
I just, before it even gets to us to even, I'm probably going to do some of the same stuff I've been doing and
Sure.
improve it, but just so the department heads can really just fine tune, is this really necessary? Just like we're going to fine tune this other stuff with these capital.
I think that's a great suggestion. I know that, I think internally we can come up with, a process to maybe have better review authority by the time it gets to my office or the mayor for review. Certainly it should have been vetted at least 2 or 3 times before it comes to you. So we can do a better job with that and maybe refine that process. So, certainly.
Yeah, maybe a standardized form that gets to us that, obviously there's, if it's certification or some sort of continuing education to maintain a certain credential that's required of their job, then that's usually going to be a checkbox. That's easy.
But have some justification in there if it's something else or a conference or something else that doesn't necessarily pertain, but why are we going to this? How are we using the taxpayer funds?
Yeah.
And what's the value for the community?
Yeah. Yeah. Just a brief explanation.
Sure. Absolutely.
If it gets to us in a standardized format, I think it's a little easier to digest.
Okay. So that won't be a problem. We can take care of that. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
What you were after there?
Yes, sir.
All right, so we're down to agenda review. So we've got a pretty thick agenda review packet for everybody. Okay, that's just a separate. So are all these just all that needs to be signed after the meeting? Okay. I guess it's just extra thick tonight, so y'all gave me a different pack. All right. So we will start the meeting, obviously a roll call, prayer, pledge of allegiance, approval of the agenda, and then the consent agenda. So y'all stop me if you want to discuss something specific, but we've got minutes that y'all were distributed on Friday to review, contract billings, disposal of inventory, then we'll have privilege of the floor. So I will specifically call out the business license ordinance and the food truck ordinance for privilege of the floor. Make sure nobody's here to address us about those issues, to make sure they know that's the time to come forward. Then we'll have staff reports, if any. We've got a few public hearings to hold for rezones that were introduced at a previous meeting. So the Bishop rezone for TH1 and B3. Stacy, Barry, any comments there? No, nothing to talk about. Athletic Edge, same thing.
How do you give it an address as 0 Boll Weevil?
So is 0 Boll Weevil Circle, that's the movie theater there? Is that? Where is 0 Boll? Is that the entire shopping center there?
Oh.
All right. Then we will reintroduce the business license code. So technically, this is kind of a technicality. We made some very minor changes to both of these ordinances. Does typically we would introduce an ordinance, carry it over, vote on it next meeting. The point being that we recognize it's important the public has time to examine. So we do have in our rules the authority to suspend that rule and consider it immediately. Does anybody have an issue, since these were minor changes? We discussed those changes in the last meeting. We made those exact changes that we discussed. Nothing additional. Does anybody have any issues suspending the rules and addressing both of these ordinances tonight?
No.
So, I do think this is an appropriate suspension of the rules. We shouldn't do that lightly, though, and without deliberations.
But both of these ordinances have been out for 30 days for public review. So it's
probably longer than that. Yeah, probably closer to 6 weeks now. So, and we've just made very minor tweaks to them. So yes, agreed. Next is some requests for public works vehicles. So, Barry, anything to discuss on these? These are all budgeted expenditures. Anything we need to know about them?
So I came to you about 2 months back we got a piece of equipment that was budgeted for $175,000 that had an 18-month to 24-month lead time. So I asked you if I could reappropriate that money to something that was just as well needed and push that piece of equipment to next year's budget. And you did that. It's $175,000. Just to let you know, those bids came in at 121. So we saved about $53,000 out of the budget for doing that. I appreciate you allowing me to switch that money around, and it helped us greatly. And the bids came in where we thought they would be.
Nice. Does anybody have any questions of Barry? I do. It's good to see some local vendors winning some of these bids.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
All right, then we'll move into the presentation of the FY 2020 financial audit. Leanne, Jonathan, anything? Obviously, we're going to go through that in the meeting. So, any pre-discussion? But we'll discuss that in the meeting, right? Okay. And also, for everybody's benefit, was everybody a party to those emails about some things that staff's doing to get on a harder timeline for I know there was some discussion at the work session last week.
I will say that, so the short answer is no. I just wanted to keep you in the loop as president of the council on that. But essentially, the mayor and I met after the budget meeting that we had, the work session last week, and we talked to Leanne, and essentially we said, this has been going on at least for the last few years of, we kind of get an audit, and it's not what we would consider timely. What we hope our target would be sometime around April 1st. How do we come up with a plan to, get there? And so Leanne really worked hard with her team to develop, a good plan and a timeline with the firms that we work with Brunson Wilkerson and again with Car Rigs. Everybody's trying to play ball to figure out, how we don't drop the ball in the future. And so I think we've got a very concise plan with benchmark dates out there that we've kind of backed into from April 1st. So in other words, if something's due, it has a date, what's due, what's expected, and we know. And so if we're getting that product to the firms for the audits on time and with what they requested, then we should hit our target. And if we don't, then it's on us. And if we don't get the audit and we deliver it on time, then it's on them. But we know we have some accountability at that point. So I think it's a good process, and I'm really proud of Leanne and her team and what they did to get us to that point. So,
well, yeah, thank you. I think y'all do have a good plan in place. All right, where were we? So then we will, after the financial audit discussion, then we will review and consider the FY 2022 operating budget, which we just discussed. So that does not require suspension of the rules. We can pass that without suspending the rules. Rainer, usually I've got a little cleaner narrative here to read. I mean, obviously I'm not going to sit here and read this whole. So is there anything specific I need to say, or just to adopt resolution 092121? Is that sufficient?
I think so. I think it's definitely sufficient. I guess we do have some material in the packet that somewhat detailed the budget. I know it's not.
Oh, well, I mean, the agenda's got a fairly detailed, obviously not as detailed as we went through last week, but at least rolled up departmental summaries.
I think that's sufficient.
Okay. All right, then we're going to review and consider resolution 0921-A, which is the application of funding assistance FY22 airport improvement. Barry, Stacy, Jonathan, which one of y'all wants to? This is an annual thing, right? This is resolution 092121A. This is the application for airport improvement funding assistance from Audit. Yeah, now it's fine.
Thank you, Mr. President. So every year we do a pre-application with FAA and ALDOT for our future funding, for next year's funding with the airport. So this is standard. They need a resolution from council to allow the mayor to sign the paperwork, and it's all electronic now. There's no signatures. Just click the box at the computer now. But what we're going to apply for is land acquisition reimbursement for next year for the work for the runway extension. So every year we have to have a resolution that goes with the packet, that goes to ALDOT, goes to FAA. So we'll continue doing this yearly. And it's just that time of year. It's something we've done every year for the last 20 years.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Any questions on that? No, it's probably the first time few of us have seen this.
It's not a commitment on funds at this point. It's just a budget number so that they can program how much it is, and then once we know what that is, then the application will come back for y'all to look at the actual dollar figures and sign the application at that point.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir.
You might as well stay up here a minute.
Okay.
So CC and Litchfield agreement with New Rec Center.
Yes, sir. So staff has worked through scope and schedule for design phase services for the new rec center. And we have a representative here from CC Litchfield as well if you have any questions. This project is built on a 30, 60, 90% design. So you've got the full design package in front of you, but what we will do is get to a 30% design, which has footprint, schematic layout, so you can see exactly what the building would be with a cost, schedule, and scope. I mean, all for the building, and it'll come back to you so you can see. And it will basically stop at 30%, and then after everybody's agreement to what the project looks like, then we'll go to full design. So what I try to do is, so you don't have to bring a bunch of contracts back to you, we can negotiate a full contract, but every one of these that you'll see will be a 30% design, which is what I'm trying to get to, so that we know actual cost, schedule, what the facility will look
So
like.
there'll be a stop sign in every one of those.
Yes, sir. Especially at 30%, because that's to me, it's the most urgent, because after 30%, once we go past 30%, they engage engineers and architects and structural, electrical, and mechanical, all those guys to start building the actual design. So I want to make sure we understand what the budget of the project is at that point.
And that 30% was due was that April? Or
I have it right back here. There's a schedule in
yeah.
in their contract up front. Mr. President, one thing I would ask is, Rainer and I are looking at some legal language in these two AIA contracts. So the recommendation in a second, if y'all decide to do so, is pending or contingent upon attorney approval.
So call for a motion to authorize mayor to execute an agreement with CC for design, bidding, and construction phase services for a new rec center not to exceed 1.181480 pending
City attorney review.
city
Mayor review.
and pending city attorney and mayor review. You want me to add that to both CC and Litchfield?
Yes, sir. Those are standard AIA contracts, but we do have leverage to modify certain portions of those. I want to make sure that the city is good with the legal language. Staff is good with the scope and the fee and the schedule.
What about the poly task order?
The task orders have a master services agreement already approved by council, so it's just a simple
Okay, so
scope and fee.
all right. So the next one with CC and Litchfield was the city hall renovations. Well, any specific questions on where we're headed with this rec center before we move on to any questions for CC and Litchfield representative? I guess I have a question. So obviously we've got this master plan from a few years ago. So I would assume that's helping at least guide, within the budget parameters and everything we've given staff. So how has that looked up to this point?
Let me answer that if I can. We took the original study that looked at if the world were our oyster, and we had plenty of money to do whatever, then looked at what is a reasonable budget that the city could go forward with. So we scaled that project down to a roughly about a $20 million project. So we had some phases of that original plan that will still be in the master plan, but will not be phased into this construction project here. Of course, we would want to make sure that the walls are in the right place for future additions. So we made sure that we're looking at four courts, which is what Billy Powell wants on the inside, plus the one for Moose Hope. And so we've got 4+1 there, plus the outdoor pool, plus all the different facets that Billy said were critical for that facility. And CC Litchfield did the original study. We went back and looked through that and tweaked down the prices to make sure we were back in the ballpark for the budget that we were talking about. And that's what the scope for this contract was based on.
Anything to add?
No, he's right. Just 5 gyms, outdoor pool, and then some general, admin and support services.
Yeah, good. All right. City hall renovations, same type agreement we're being asked to approve tonight, and then so just.
Yeah, the one difference I'd point out on this one is it's not a hard not to exceed cost. Because it's renovation work and we're going through design, it's based upon a percentage of the construction cost. We know what the budget is at this point. That's why I think it's very important that we do that 30% design. That way we know what the budget is and we know what we're committing to. Not just for construction, but also for professional services as well.
And in your experience, the fees and everything we're agreeing to have been vetted out in the market.
Yes, sir.
Market rates.
They're based on the state fee schedule, so it's the fee we provide him from the client.
Gotcha. Scotty?
No, I was just looking at the document. It looks pretty good.
Greg, any questions?
Back to the recreation department, this $1.18 million that is that total, or is there gonna be any additional architectural fees?
So in the contract, there's basic services and additional services. So originally we looked at it was a basic service that we could all agree to between the architect and myself. And then what I had them do was to actually allocate budgets like you would do in a home, that they budgeted so much for each one of these different phases. For like a pool consultant, how much they budgeted for that, how much they budget for geotech, how much they budget for all these things. So what I didn't want to do is come to you with a contract, and then these additional services are another, I'm making it up, 50% more than the basic services. So I did what I thought was right to put enough budget in there. We should not be coming back to you for any additional fees for this work. However, when we get into the design at 30%, we'll be able to refine that number. If we have an issue, I'll bring it back to you at 30%. But I think at this point where we are, there will be no additional. This is all covered in that number that's there in front of you, including construction oversight, all the way through construction, closeout project.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Sonia, anything on either one of these? All right, well, sounds good. Thank you. Then we got our task order for environmental study at the recreation center. So that's
Asbestos, lead, anything like that we need to make sure we understand. We're looking to do that work in-house with staff to demo the old rec center to save the city money. Just making sure environmentally is safe for us to do so.
So if we, assuming we approve this tonight, how long would the study take, and then when could we start actual demolition?
Depending on what they find when they do the study.
Are we expecting them to find?
It was built in the 50s or earlier. Expected we'll hit some things, but depending on the study, I'll come back to you with a schedule once we get that. And
any questions on rec center task order? Design package for the new soccer complex.
Yes, sir. So that's an agreement that we are working with the college, for the 25 acres on the college property plus PV Park. So this is to get to a 30% design package for both of those facilities. So we're looking at total grading, what would need to be cleared, looking at costs, and getting into the weeds of how many fields will be lit, how much kind of we're gonna do about parking, concession stands, all those things in it, to get to a point where we know what our goal would be to do as much of the grading work and stuff as we can in-house. But if the grading plan turns into 2 million cubic yards of dirt moving, we may need to back up and come up with another solution for that. So this was a way for us to understand what the total scope of the project is, and to check the boxes, do the due diligence to get this thing ready to go to full-blown design.
This is ready to turn on pretty quickly if we approve it.
Yes, sir. He's ready to get started now. So they'll be doing all the topo design, doing any of the permitting that has to be done, and doing the 30% design, and giving us a rough grading plan with cost and schedule for the project. Yes, sir.
And we're where we need to be with the college, right? Everything's executed.
Talking about for the soccer fields.
Soccer fields.
Yeah, absolutely. We're where we need to be. We have about a 2-year, 24-month window to start the project.
But we started way before that.
Correct. So we could, I'm pushing Barry and Glenn. It may. But hopefully, maybe as early as the end of the year, November, December timeframe, we can at least start some rough grading and stuff out on the site. So.
All right. The next item on the agenda is authorize mayor to execute a proposal for the CDG VA home access road. We're touching some of everything tonight.
Time to move. So we. That parcel, one of the things that we committed to for the VA home was to provide access to 167 if they chose to, build a road into the site from 167. The Industrial Development Board is going through the process right now of acquiring that land to do so. Part of that acquisition, though, there's been no geotech or topo or anything on that site. And we've been asked to provide that. CDG is who the VA is using for their work, and so it only makes sense to continue that onto our our property, so that we have the same, apples to apples data that's being reported back in the same format. I think it'll expedite the process, and certainly something we committed to provide in our proposal to the VA.
Yeah, so this is not a new commitment. This will be coming off of our existing.
Yeah, I think we committed up to $250,000 to provide access, and this would be part of that.
Any questions on the VA access road? I know we've been briefed on that before. Then the next item is to execute the agreement with the Nelson Group to provide supplementary accounting assistance related to debt issuance.
Yeah. So that one's up to $10,000. I think it's about 50 hours worth of work. Again, we talked about the audit, how to get these things cleaned up and on a timely manner. Certainly don't think we need to add personnel, but we could add, some man hours to help Leanne and her staff really get this thing off the ground and on the right foot. And I think it's the right move. It would be timely, and I think it's needed. We don't anticipate this being an annual occurrence, obviously, but we've got to get some things righted so that we're not faced with, audits in the future that are, September or later.
Mm-hmm. It's just kind of a temporary horsepower add to the accounting department.
Absolutely.
Any questions on that? We've obviously used Nelson Group in the past, familiar with them.
Yeah, that was one of the main benefits, is they were just in here in 2019. They have familiarity with our system. They can pick up where they left off. So.
Next item is, now we're just down to a few public hearings. We're calling for public hearings. We'll not be holding these tonight. On some ABC license requests for Trascorp Capital, Dajin Corp, and TriStar Energy. So just some fairly ordinary introductions there. Then we'll go to our mayor's report and council comments. So looks like we're a little ahead of schedule. Does anybody have anything they want updates on from staff? I guess, well, go ahead, Eugene.
Barry, what's our next step on the parking lot?
I actually was going to ask about that too.
You were just saying parking lot.
Parking lot.
The parking lot. So we're still on schedule for end of November, having the project complete. We've met with Aldot today. Again, that's regular discussion. We've got topo in hand. We got grading work that we want to tweak one thing to that. So the next step will be we're working with Alabama Power about there's 2 poles that are actually in the edge of the existing gutter line to get those things moved. So I worked with the engineer on the project yesterday to refine a couple things in the parking lot so we can nail down the location of where those poles need to be. So we'll have lighting in the parking lot shining down. We'll have, of course, new curb and gutter around the outside, new sidewalks put in around it, and of course paving to add to that. So
Are we going to have to bring in a lot of dirt?
we're going to bring in some. Yes, sir. There's some. And of course, we got all the if you've been out there, all the concrete and all the slabs and all that stuff's been removed, so we can actually see what we're up against. We're going to need to bring some dirt in to bring it up to grade. And that was one of the discussions we had today with Aldot was, was the parking lot going to be at the same grade as the sidewalks, so it sheet flows off into the gutters and into the drains, or were they going to ask us to bring it down and collect it all in internal storm? And right now the answer is to leave it like we proposed, to leave the parking lot up so it sheet flows across back, and it will save us a lot of money on the project.
Less expensive.
Yes, sir. So dirt's a whole lot cheaper than doing all the additional concrete work and such. So
I've noticed y'all. I assume there's technically an alley there.
it is.
So that'll have to remain, I guess. Will there'll be a curb up to that alley, or will just new paving up?
So the alley as on the GIS system and what we've seen on deeds are 10-foot alley off the back of the Yancey Parker building. There was some discussion about, since we're building the parking lot, to go ahead and get those property corners done. So I talked to the engineer to get a boundary survey done so we can stake the actual corners up there next to the building. One of the things I'm looking at, since we're going to pave all the way up to that, is to pave the alley as well, and making sure that, I hate to get within 10 foot of that building, and the alley is really a public alley anyway, not go ahead and pave that alley while we're doing it. One of the discussions we did have was, there is a mural that will be painted on the back of the Yancey Parker building, is to make sure we can coordinate to get lighting on that mural at nighttime. You can put the lights too close, and you can wash it out like a camera. You can overexpose the colors, so you want to get. So we're working with the Alabama Power lighting expert to see if we can use our lighting in the parking lot to do that as well, so it doesn't add us additional cost to the project. Right now, the project seems to be on schedule and on cost.
When you say end of November, is that like by Black Friday, Small Business Saturday?
The only thing that concerns me right now is we're using the county paving contract to get that done. So I've been in discussion with the county, and hopefully by next week I'll have a schedule for paving. That's going to be the one that concerns me the most. I talked to Shannon Roberts with Public Works. We've been through the sidewalk project that for college and all the other streets over there.
That was my next question.
We're trying to, because once you go look, there's a lot more needs than the budget has. So we're trying to get, we want to make sure we handle all the problems, but we're trying to get it budget friendly. And hopefully we'll have that done the next day or two and get that thing ready to bid. So the sidewalks for the parking lot project will be bid in that project as well. So we'll save cost there, but they'll be broken out independently. So you'll see exactly what each project cost.
It'd be great if they could, because you're going to see you're going to have Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, and you got the Christmas parade and Whoville, just bam, 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 bam.
We're doing everything we can.
So it won't quit raining. Yeah, gotta quit raining.
So one thing I do want to, we've had discussions with recently is, so if you go along Main Street, we have the city lighting, the ornate poles with the globe on top. Since this is going to be a parking lot that the city's going to put into a city facility, one of the things that we were contemplating was whether or not to add those lightings along the sidewalk. So when you pull in that parking lot, it looks like a city facility, like you would be going along Main Street. We did ask the engineer what those poles cost, and a typical budget he would think for doing this is like a $30,000 add to the project. But we'll have lighting in there on poles that would light the parking lot area. But if we wanted to bring Main Street down to where that parking lot is, we can go ahead while we're doing the sidewalk and put the conduits and the wiring and everything in place, so that it won't stop they won't slow the project down, but we could order the poles if the council decides you want to go forward with that, and get a harder cost. But that's just a rough budget number, about $30,000 to do that work. But it would make it look like Main Street if that's something that interests you.
I think it'd be an excellent idea.
We're looking at about six of those lighting poles.
Yeah.
3 along Easy Street,
East side.
3 along Lee Street, and
Would they have the irrigation also?
we can do either one. What I was looking at was just the duplex poles. So you have the 2 110 outlets there at the base, and then the light pole, and then the globe. We weren't running any water lines for the irrigation to tie back into. If we want to do the irrigation with the pot holder, we're gonna have to run water line around that as well. So it would be an additional cost if you want to do that.
So you want to bring something actionable on that, or is that something?
I could bring it to your next council meeting with a hard cost of what it would take to add that to the project for y'all to.
So everybody at least want to continue that discussion.
Yeah. I'll have that for you for next council meeting.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Eugene, you were going to ask about something else, or?
No, he covered it both. He covered the sidewalk repairs.
Road paving project that you've let Glenn hang out back there in the back.
Yeah, I'm letting Glenn talk for a minute. I know y'all get tired of looking at me.
Come on down.
The project advertises tomorrow. Bids opening is scheduled for October the 12th. Barry's got a set of plans that he's been going through, so we've got a few minor tweaking to do tomorrow. Probably issue the plans on Thursday. So same list that we give you before is the project list.
I assume the local contractors are interested in it.
Yeah, I've talked to one of the local contractors who's done the previous projects, and he's very interested and fits their schedule real well. So hopefully we'll reflect that in the bid.
Okay.
Our goal would be if we take bids on October the 12th, then that would start putting asphalt down November-ish, pending the contractor doesn't push back on us too hard. That was our goal, was to be under construction in November.
The goal would be to have it on the agenda
19th of October.
Yeah.
For award to the contractor.
And then start putting.
Then we'd issue a notice to proceed. probably around the 1st of November. We'll have contract documents to get executed. It'll take a few weeks to do that, but as soon as we can get that process expedited, then we'll give him a notice to proceed.
And then the duration.
You're probably talking, I haven't set the time on the project yet, but you're talking 4 or 5 months probably, because it's just large, 18 miles of street total.
So would that be enough? That give us enough time to get the next phase?
Well, we talked about that today, and we've somewhat already initiated what the next street list will look like. So yes, we'll be working on that during that period of time, so that when that one's about winding up, we'll be ready to go to another one.
Yeah, it'd be nice just to
It'd be
keep.
nice to have it awarded by the time that one's over.
The only thing you'll need to give us direction on is a budget for what you think that next budget would be. Originally we talked about a 7 million type number, but whatever that number is will dictate how far down into the list that we can go for that next phase. So that's something y'all need to
Of
consider.
course, we've got several balls up in the air, whether it's rec centers and soccer complexes. So I guess it's good.
If it's a 5-month construction period, we can really push this decision to a December type timeframe to make that decision. We know the list. We'll work the list between Glenn and I about what roads are in order, and be working on the underground utilities and having that stuff done, because we know what has to be done. But we need to make that decision, I would guess, in December, so that we can finalize the plans and be ready to go to bid and have the next project ready to go when this one wraps up, if that's your desire.
I would suggest some portion of that 16 million would be a substantial portion, still have a lot of runway, for other projects or overages. If you want to play it safe, you get a lot of streets done for, like we said, $7-8 million, and still be pretty comfortable in your bond issue.
7 million. We had that discussion early on when the report
Was
was
that
done.
7 additional to the 3.8 or 7 total, including
7
the 3?
in addition to 7 million is kind of in my opinion, kind of a cap of what you can get done in one paving season. So if you push it much more than that, I think you're gonna see elevated cost of paving. So you need to keep it where the contractor can get that work done in a schedule that he kind of can foresee what fuel costs are going to be. And that if you get it too big, you're going to end up paying for the risk that the contractor may want to factor into his cost. So just my recommendation, that's that 5 to 7 million is a sweet spot for a paving year for our size. But
This current phase doesn't include any of the bond money. You remember there was some money in the regional bank account. When I took over in March, we unfroze that, kind of pushed it into US Street.
Yeah. Anybody got any questions, or we got Glenn and Barry up here? Anything for them? All right. Anything for any other staff members?
Covered it all tonight.
Yeah. Well, if nobody has anything, Jonathan, Mayor, Leanne, anybody got anything? If not, we'll take a brief recess of about 9 minutes, and we will reconvene in open session. One reminder, we have an E911 board meeting immediately following our regular meeting. We are the board, so we'll adjourn that meeting, and then we'll go right into the E911 board meeting. I guess we can just cover everything we need to discuss in that meeting, right, Chief? Okay. All right, we are adjourned from the work session. We'll reconvene in the open meeting in 9 minutes.
Hey, how you doing?
Fix that one.
Excuse me. All right, watch out, huh?
All right, we've got 6 o'clock. If I could ask everybody to come in and get seated, and we've got a councilman missing. There he is. All right, we've got everybody here. If we could get the room to order. I've got 1 minute after 6, so I will call this meeting of the Enterprise City Council to order. Let the record show that all members of the council are present. Please stand for our open prayer and pledge of allegiance. I'm sorry, I usually have the pastor's name if you want to introduce yourself. Speak in the microphone.
You want to pray first?
Yes, pray first.
I'm Pastor Joey from Christ Community Church. I've only been in the city for a couple of years, so this is my first time to have this honor. So thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council. May we pray together. Heavenly Father, tonight we come before you with a humble heart and obedient desires. This evening we plan our course, but we pray that you will establish our steps. We ask blessings upon the city and the council and our honorable mayor. Help them to come with effective strategies that can enable them all to move forward as a team in a meaningful way for the benefit of our city and our community. Father, we ask your protection and direction for all of our first responders and the employees of our great city, the City of Enterprise. Finally, Lord, I plead with you tonight earnestly to eradicate this terrible virus, COVID, from our community, our state, and our world. And please be with those on the front line who are fighting this. Give them the grace to endure this battle and place within them the supernatural wisdom to treat those who are sick. This evening we wait upon you, Lord, knowing that you are and can renew our strength. We will mount up with wings like eagles. We shall run and not be weary. We shall walk and not faint. In the name of my Savior and Lord, and Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. All right, Council, you have the agenda in front of you that we discussed in the work session prior to this meeting. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as submitted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now consider the consent agenda. All matters listed within the consent agenda have been distributed to each member of the council for review, are considered to be routine, and will be enacted by one motion of the City Council with no separate discussion. If separate discussion is desired on an item, that item may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda by request of a member of the City Council. I will now call for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, now's the time of the meeting for privilege of the floor. This is for anybody who's present here that wants to address the council about anything of their choosing. A couple of notes. We do have some public hearings on some rezones. This is not the time to address us concerning the Bishop rezone or the Athletic Edge rezone. But if you do want to address us concerning the new business license code or the food trucks, now would be the time to do that. Or for anything else that you want to address the council about. So is there anybody here for any of that? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Dawn Johnson. Several years ago, we were able to bring our prescription that was post-dated and also our diabetic needles contained in a safe thing. Because of the COVID, we haven't been able to take our medicine anywhere. We can't flush it down anywhere because that's not good for our water system. Because Lister doesn't allow us to go read military and spouses, we can't go into the building anymore to take our old prescription bottles. Several years ago, Enterprise Police Department did have this afternoon and evening that we could bring our medicine. I was wondering if they could do that again.
Chief Moore, you got any comments on that?
So I know the gentleman that was over that went through the state, he was a narcotics agent. He's doesn't work for us anymore. So I'll have to look into why we haven't done that, why we ended it, and it may be something that the state has ended because that's what we fell under when we did those type of activities. But I certainly can look into it to determine, why we can't do it, how we can't do it, or if we can go ahead and begin again. But yeah, that's
All right.
something we can entertain. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to address the council? All right, we'll move on to staff reports. Are there any additional staff reports that we did not receive? Anybody from staff that wants to address the council? All right, we'll move into old business. I will now call for a public hearing prior to consideration of Ordinance 081721, providing for the rezone of 21.566 acres of land owned by Robert Bishop from R75A Residential District and B3 Highway Commercial District to TH1 Townhouse District located at 0 Bowleville Circle. So this public hearing is now open. Is there anybody here that wishes to speak for or against this ordinance? All right, seeing no one, I will close the hearing and call for consideration of Ordinance 081721. Do I hear a motion?
I move that we approve the ordinance.
Second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt Ordinance 081721. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I will now call for a public hearing prior to consideration of Ordinance 081721-A, providing for the rezone of 4.612 acres of land owned by Robert Bishop from R75A Residential District and B3 Highway Commercial District to B3 Highway Commercial District, located at 0 Bowleville Circle. This public hearing is now open. Is there anybody here to speak for or against? Seeing no one, I will close the hearing, and I will entertain a motion to adopt Ordinance 081721A.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt Ordinance 081721A. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I will now call for a public hearing prior to consideration of Ordinance 081721B, providing for the rezone of 9.789 acres of land owned by Athletic Edge LLC from B3 Highway Commercial District to INST Institutional District located at 10 Maverick Way. This public hearing is now open. Is there anyone here to speak for or against? Seeing no one, I will now close the public hearing and entertain a motion to adopt Ordinance 081721B.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt Ordinance 081721B. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I will be abstaining from this vote because I have an indirect contact with it.
All right, so let the record reflect that. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we will now introduce Ordinance 0821C, providing for the implementation of a new business license code and schedule for the City of Enterprise as of January 1st, 2022 and thereafter. Council, as discussed in the work session, this is a reintroduction of the prior code with some tweaks that we discussed at the last meeting. So if we're going to consider this tonight, we're going to need to suspend the rules so we can consider this immediately.
I make a motion we suspend the rules.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules so we can adopt Ordinance 081721C. Is there any discussion considering suspension of the rules? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I will now entertain a motion to adopt Ordinance 081721C, providing for the implementation of a new business license code and schedule for the City of Enterprise as of January 1st, 2022 and thereafter.
Move that we adopt the ordinance.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt Ordinance 081721-C. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, I will now introduce ordinance 081721-D, providing for and regulating food trucks in the city of Enterprise. So this is the same situation as prior. We discussed this at a previous meeting. It had been introduced, so we're reintroducing it tonight. So I will entertain a motion to suspend the rules so we can address 081721-D immediately.
Make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. Is there any discussion?
Only discussion is just make everyone that's here aware that this has been out in the public for about 6 weeks for review. So this is not something that's new tonight.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, suspend the rules, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries and rules are suspended. And I will now entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 081721-D, providing for and regulating food trucks in the city of Enterprise.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I'll now introduce and call for consideration of a recommendation from Public Works Director, City Engineer Barry Mott, to award the following bids meeting specification. Bid requisition number 2021-07 for one Freightliner automated dump garbage truck in the amount of $204,001 to GSP Marketing. Other bids received are as follows: Ingram Equipment in the amount of $250,377. Bid requisition number 2021-08 for one stationary garbage compactor and two containers to Waste Equip Manufacturing Company in the amount of $38,076.40. Other bids received are as follows: ARC compactors in the amount of $49,048.25. Bid requisition number 2021-09 for one 2022 Dodge half-ton pickup truck to Mitchell Chrysler Dodge Jeep in the amount of $44,737. No other bids were received. Bid requisition number 2021-10 for one 2022 Ford F-350 work truck in the amount of $39,095.52 to Ed Sherling Ford. Other bids received are as follows: Mitchell Chrysler Dodge Jeep in the amount of $44,155.00. I'll entertain a motion to adopt this recommendation from our engineer.
So move.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve these recommendations. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to new business. We will now have a presentation of fiscal year 2020 financial audit from Misty Tyndall of Brunson, Wilkerson, and Belton. Hey, Misty.
Hey, I am Misty Tyndall. I am a partner with Brunson, Wilkerson, Belton & Associates. I was the partner in charge on the city's audit this year. I've worked with the city numerous years on audits. And on behalf of the firm, I want to thank the council and mayor for allowing us, again, to be your auditor and having confidence in our firm to be able to do the financial audits for the city of Enterprise. In front of you, you should have a red folder, a small red folder. As some of you know from the past, your actual financial statement are in these big red books over here. Due to time constraints, I'm not going to review the whole entire book with you. That would take hours, so I'm just going to hit the highlights tonight. But in your folder, you have a presentation on one side, and then you should have two letters on the other side. The two letters, one is a management letter, and then the other is a required communication that we have to do at the end of our audit. So those two letters are in your folder, as well as the presentation. I'm going to go by the little presentation booklet. I'm going to hit the highlights, so some of these numbers are not in your presentation. So if you want to jot those down while I'm covering that. We did issue an unmodified opinion on the financial statements for the city of Enterprise for fiscal year ended September 30th, 2020. You will find in the big, I'm going to reference some pages in the actual financial statement for you, and they're in the presentation. The independent auditor's report is on pages 1 through 4 of the financial statement. Again, we did issue an unmodified opinion. That's the highest level of opinion that you can receive. Now, our opinion, we did not audit the Waterworks Board, so our opinion, insofar as it relates to the Waterworks Board, is based on the opinion of the other auditors. But we did audit all other funds and activities of the city. In the financial statements, you then, after the auditor's report, there's a management's discussion analysis. That is on pages 5 through 17. That's written by management. And it's just an analysis of the financial statement and then a discussion of other points, future things that are happening in the city that will affect the financial statements in the future. So you can find that again on pages 5 through 17. Starting on page 18, you have the government-wide financial statements. In the financial statements for governments, you have government-wide financial statements and you have fund financial statements. The government-wide financial statements are on the accrual basis of accounting, and the fund financial statements are on the modified accrual basis of accounting. The biggest difference between the government-wide and the fund financial statements are that the fund financial statements do not include your capital assets, nor do they include your long-term debt. You will see in your financial statements on pages, 21, and then on 23 and 24, a reconciliation between those fund financial statements and the government-wide financial statements. In the government-wide financial statements, you'll find governmental activities and business-type activities. The business-type activities are the Waterworks Board and the Sewer Fund. The governmental activities are everything else. In the fund financial statements, you'll find proprietary funds. Those are Waterworks and Sewer Board. You will find governmental funds. That's everything else. You will find an agency fund, and that is funds that the municipal court holds for other agencies or other entities. And that's separated out separately from the governmental funds and the proprietary funds. In your big financial statement book, the statement of net position starts on page 18. For the year ended September 30th, 2020, you ended the year with total assets and deferred outflows of resources of $137,978,583. Of that amount, approximately $86 million came from the governmental activities, and approximately $51.9 million came from the business type activities. I've listed in your presentation here some of the highlights. Selected assets, these are the largest assets that you report. Unrestricted cash and cash equivalents was approximately $10.9 million at the end of the fiscal year. You'll see their receivables were approximately $8.7 million. I also have listed their current restricted cash of approximately $5.7 million and capital assets of approximately $54.8 million. That's only in the governmental activities. So that's everything other than the Waterworks and the Sewer Board. You'll see there I've listed some totals under deferred outflows of resources. Those are on debt refundings and then also related to pensions. Also, I've listed their selected liabilities, including accounts payable and accrued liabilities. Your other post-employment benefit obligation, that's your health insurance plan. Your net pension liability, that's retirement. And then long-term liabilities, which includes the current portion of debt, and that was approximately $66.1 million. Under that, you have deferred inflows of resources. That's unavailable revenues related to property taxes, related to pensions, and then related to your other post-employment benefits. On the governmental activities, the net position, you'll see there at the end of the year, and your change in net position for the end of the year was approximately $5.8 million. On this statement, I did get ahead of myself a little bit. Your total liabilities and deferred inflows of resources at 9/30/20 were $141,952,001. Of that, approximately $102.3 million came from the governmental activities, and $39.7 million came from the business type activities. The total net position of the city at 9/30/2020 was a deficit of $3.97 million, $16.2 million of that coming from the governmental activities, and $12.3 coming from the business type activities. Your total net change in net position for the year was approximately $6.4 million. Of that amount, the governmental activities increased by approximately $5.8 million, and the business type activities increased by approximately $596,000. I'm going to go back to the presentation right quick. On the bottom there, we'll go to the business type activities, and you see there I've listed out selected assets there. The largest of that being you have unrestricted cash and cash equivalents of approximately $604,000 at the end of the fiscal year, and current restricted cash of approximately $7.6 million at the end of the fiscal year. In the business type activities, you have approximately $40.5 million invested in capital assets. That's net of depreciation. You'll see there some detail on deferred outflows of resources. Again, that's on debt and related to pensions. You'll see on the next page we have selected liabilities for the business type activities. Again, I've listed accounts payable, the other post-employment benefit obligation, net pension liability, and your long-term liabilities, including your current portion. You'll see next deferred inflows of resources, again related to pensions and health insurance plan, and then you'll see the net position that I just discussed. On page 19 of your financial statement, you'll find your statement of activities. That's kind of in the business world like an income statement. The statement of net position is like your balance sheet in the business world. Just have different names in governments. Again, you'll see governmental activities, revenues, selected revenues. You'll see there, the largest there is sales tax at approximately $24.6 million for the year. That was up from $22.8 million from the prior year. I've detailed out the other revenues there in the statement of activities, and that, again, this is for the governmental activities. If you'll turn the page, we'll see the expenses for the statement of activities of the governmental. I've again detailed out selected expenses for you, the largest of which comes from public safety, which is approximately $9.5 million. That's police and fire. If you'll look down, business type activities, I referenced the fund statement on page 26. That statement gives you a little more detail about the business type activities and the different type of expenses, particularly that are in those funds. First, we have the Waterworks Board, which had operating revenues of approximately $5.96 million during the fiscal year. Expenses, the operating expenses of the Waterworks Board were approximately $4.4 million. You'll see the sewer fund there with operating revenues of approximately $3.6 million and operating expenses of approximately $2.9 million. Again, I've selected certain items that I think you might want to look at in the financial statements there below. If you'll turn the page, in your large financial statement book, you'll find the statement of cash flows. That's on pages 27 and 28. Your ending cash for the Waterworks Board was approximately $7.9 million, and your ending cash for the sewer fund was approximately $1.2 million. Following the statement of cash flows, you'll see the statement of fiduciary net position on page 29. And again, that is dealing with the municipal court. Your notes to the financial statements begin on page 30 and continue on to page 104. I've listed here some significant notes that I think you might want to look at, particularly note 6, capital assets, that details your investment in capital assets and the related depreciation for each type of capital asset for the year. The capital assets for the year, you added equipment, vehicles, and a CAD system. You also had projects in process during the year of College Street, roadway crossing and culvert, airport improvements, sidewalk project, and resurfacing project. Long-term debt, also on note 7, it details out the different types of long-term debt that the city has, and it also gives you a detail of the maturity requirements, principal and interest, for the next 5 years, and then in 5-year increments thereafter. So I would pay attention to that note. Note 8 tells you about the employee retirement plan, and note 9 describes the other post-employment benefits plan. On pages 105 through 111 is required supplementary information. gives you some budget to actual comparisons and some schedules that are required in the pension and the other post-employment retirement plan. I also wanted to, let me back up just a minute, and the governmental, and the debt, on the long-term debt, the governmental activities, you had no additions to long-term debt during the year, but you paid down approximately $3.6 million in long-term debt. The business type activities, they also had no debt additions during the year and paid down approximately $1.8 million in long-term debt. That was during the fiscal year ended 9/30/20. I did miss one thing that I was going to point out to you. The governmental funds financial statements, and again, you can find a reconciliation between those financial statements and the governmental activities financial statements. The government funds ended with a positive fund balance of approximately $20.9 million for the fiscal year. Of that amount, approximately $10.4 million was unassigned. So that was not either assigned to different, that was not restricted or assigned to another function. So, already committed to be used. Okay, on your page 5 of the presentation, I wanted to point out that on pages 112 through 114 of the financial statement is a supplementary schedule of expenditures of federal awards and related notes. During the fiscal year, you expended $1,722,872 in federal awards. Included in that amount was grants for the airport improvement projects, highway planning and construction, and a CDBG demolition grant and a summer feeding program grant. After that, you will see the summary schedule of prior audit findings on page 120, corrective action plan on pages 121 to 122. Pages 123 through 133 include combining financial statements. In the fund financial statement, there's a little column that says non-major funds. The combining financial statements detail out those non-major funds. There's things like gas tax funds, motor vehicle tax. There's a IDB fund, E911 fund in the back. You can see the details of those funds in those combining financial statements. After the combining financial statement, there's a schedule of revenues, and then there's a schedule of departmental expenses. On pages 134 through 135, you will find the Government Auditing Standards Report on Internal Control and Compliance. I would advise you to read that report. We did have a few findings. Those findings have been discussed with management, and management has implemented changes to take care of those findings. On pages 136 through 138 is our report on compliance for each major program and on internal control over compliance required by the Uniform Guidance. That's your federal expenditures. We did not have any findings related to federal expenditures, so there are no findings presented in that report. If you turn the page, I have prepared some graphs. Sometimes it helps me if I can look at big numbers like this in a graph format. So you have some pie charts here. The first one is governmental activities revenue by type. You can see there that your sales tax makes up a large majority of your revenue for the City of Enterprise, followed by charges for services and then ad valorem tax. Your charges for services are charges for like recreation services, business license, things such as that.
Sanitation fees, though.
Yes, sanitation fees are in there as well. Yes. The next chart is governmental activities expenses by activity. And you can see there again that public safety is the majority of your expenses, followed by payments to the city school for education, and then highways and streets. The next page is business type activities revenues by type. And you'll see there that your charges for services for Waterworks Board and then charges for services for the sewer fund make up the majority of your revenue for the business type activities. The next page is a graph of your business type activities expenses by activity, and that's just comparing the Waterworks Fund and the sewer fund. Again, those are the activities that are reported in the business type activities. So I know that was quick and a lot of information. I tried to hit the highlights for you. I know you haven't seen these. I know you just got them today. So my card is in the front of the folder. Anytime you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. If you have questions right now, I'll be glad to answer them. But I know you just got them, so you may not have had time to look at anything and develop any questions. But I'd be glad to answer any questions now, if you have any.
So you might have any questions for Misty? like she said, I know we just got them, but well, thank you very much, and
Again, thank you all for allowing Brunson, Wilkerson, and Bowden to perform the audit services.
Thank you.
All right.
thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right, back to our agenda. We will now, staying on the financial topic, review and consider Resolution 0921-21, which is our fiscal year 2022 operating budget. So everybody should have that in their packet, and certainly have had several days to review all this. It was the subject of our work session last week. So I will now introduce and call for consideration of Resolution 0921-21, providing for the adoption of the fiscal year 2022 operating budget.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 092121, which is our fiscal year operating budget. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We will now review and consider Resolution 092121A, which is application for funding assistance for FY22 airport improvement. So I introduce and call for consideration of Resolution 092121A, providing for the authorization of an application for airport improvement funding assistance from the State of Alabama Department of Transportation. The funding will be for the purpose of undertaking a project to make improvements at the Enterprise Municipal Airport. Resolution 092121A further authorizes the mayor to execute the application agreements subject to an opinion from the city attorney, and that the city is authorized to enter into an agreement. So I'll entertain a motion to to adopt Resolution 092121A.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, I will now call for a motion to authorize the mayor to execute an agreement with CC and Litchfield PC for design, bidding, and construction phase services for a new recreational facility at a not-to-exceed amount of $1,181,480.85, pending the city attorney and mayor's review. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to authorize the mayor to execute this agreement. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I will now call for a motion to authorize the mayor to execute an agreement with CC and Litchfield PC for design, bidding, and construction phase services for the renovation of Enterprise City Hall at a total fee of 8.25% of construction costs, pending city attorney and mayor's approval. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to authorize the mayor to execute this agreement. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I'll now call for a motion to authorize the mayor to execute task order number 49 to Poly Incorporated at a not-to-exceed cost of $7,480 for the completion of an environmental study at the existing Enterprise Recreation Center property. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to authorize the mayor to execute this agreement. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I will now call for a motion to authorize the mayor to execute task order number 50 to Poly Incorporated at a not-to-exceed cost of $92,650 to complete a 30% design package for the new soccer complex at PV Park and adjoining college property. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to authorize the mayor to execute this agreement. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I will now call for a motion to authorize the mayor to execute a proposal with CDG Engineers and Associates to provide geotechnical and surveying services for the proposed VA nursing home access road project at a total cost of $47,510. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to authorize the mayor to execute the proposal. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I will now call for a motion to authorize the mayor to execute an agreement with the Nelson Group LLC at a not-to-exceed cost of $10,000 to provide supplementary accounting assistance related to debt issuance. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, a second, to authorize the mayor to execute this agreement. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I will now introduce a request from Chaz Corp. Capital Incorporated, DBA, The Social on Main, for a lounge retail liquor Class 1 license located at 108 North Main Street. I will call for a public hearing to be held at the regular meeting scheduled for October 5th, 2021. There will be no action tonight. I also introduce a request from Dodgen Corp. LLC, DBA, Dollar General Store, 22775, for a retail beer off-premise only license and retail wine off-premise only license located at 611 North Main Street. I'll also call for a public hearing to be held at the regular meeting scheduled for October 5th, 2021. Again, there'll be no action tonight on this. I'll also introduce a request from TriStar Energy LLC, DBA, Southern Traders 3111, for a retail beer off-premise only license and retail wine off-premise only license located at 1114 Rucker Boulevard. Also call for a public hearing to be held at a regular meeting scheduled for October 5th, 2021. There'll be no action taken tonight on this either. All right, that concludes our meeting. Mayor, you've got a report for us?
I would like to thank the council for passing the budget and the other things that relate to the city as far as construction, research and all that. So we're now on our way getting some of these projects completed. I also want to thank the general public who coming and being applaud and see what's going on with our city. We have a lot going on, but we're moving in the right direction. So again, we want to say thank you.
Sonia?
Thank you everyone for coming out tonight. This is a chock full agenda, but as you can see, these are things that we've been discussing since we took office, and they're moving on out. I would be remiss to not say anything and express our gratitude to our administration and our financial staff, as well as our department heads. I wish everyone in the room could have been at our work session last week to really hear the detailed information they presented to us that we approved on tonight in our budget. Very interesting. They did a fine job in presenting us, very good information to make sound decisions. So it was a lot of work put in, very organized, and I just appreciate you all's dedication to do that. Thank you everybody for coming.
Councilman Goolsby?
I did tell what Sonia said. We had a lot on our plate tonight. We got a lot accomplished, and I'm glad to see the progress we're making. Thank you for the report, Barry, on our parking lot and our repairs to our sidewalks. Glad to see progress there. Thank you everybody for coming.
Councilman Paget?
I'd like to thank spokesperson Sonia Rich for all she's just said tonight. Ditto.
And I'll ditto too. It was great. And department heads, thank you for everything you do each and every day with your departments and all those folks that are working to make this the best city in Alabama. Thank you everybody for coming. Thank you to everybody that's online watching us tonight. God bless.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Basically what Sonia said. I mean, we blew through this in 40 minutes, but there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that went into everything we did tonight. So it's been a long time coming for a lot of this, especially thank you to Leanne and Michael and everybody who worked on this budget. And Jonathan, you were a big part of that too, and all the department heads really. So we did a good job, or y'all did a good job last week. I know we aren't where y'all want to be with it, but we're certainly headed in the right direction. So thank y'all for that. And we're going to adjourn this meeting. So this meeting's adjourned, but we're about to reconvene after the room quiets back down into an E911 board meeting. So everybody's welcome to stay in the room as we reconvene that. But we are adjourned from our council meeting. go ahead and sign this stuff.
Start signing all